the Oracle of the Ruins. After the strike on ancient Israel in 732 BC, all that was left of the buildings that had stood in the path of the enemy's onslaught were the ruined heaps of fallen bricks, the third harbinger. The bricks were not just the remnants of destruction, but also foreshadowings of what was yet to come. They were prophecies in ruin heaps. Their warning was twofold. The first was this: if the nation continued in its course, a greater destruction would befall it, and the ruined heaps of fallen bricks that appeared in limited number and scale, the result of a limited strike, would become nearly universal. The ruins would appear throughout the land. The nation itself would be left in ruins. The second warning of the fallen bricks was larger. The fallen bricks spoke of collapse, implosion, a crumbling, the wiping away of structure, disintegration, and destruction. The second warning was this: if the people didn't heed the warning, the kingdom itself would crumble, collapse, implode, be destroyed. And that is exactly what would take place in the years that followed. The kingdom of Israel would be wiped away from the land. The third harbinger manifested in America in the fall of the towers and the massive ruin heaps that appeared at ground zero in their place. According to the pattern of Israel's judgment, the warning would be this: America cannot war against the God of its foundation and expect its blessings to remain. If America does not turn from its course, it will become vulnerable to a future event of even greater destruction. And beyond this is a larger warning. The bricks, the ruin heaps, and 9/11 itself speak of collapse, implosion, disintegration, and destruction. The larger warning would be this: in his blessings, God allowed America to be built up as a high tower among the nations. But a tower cannot separate itself from the very foundation on which it rests and still stand. So too with America. Without God, America will not hold, but will collapse. What adds to the message is that the towers that fell on 9/11 carried specific symbolic meaning. They represented America's financial and economic power and preeminence. In their collapse, the warning of the bricks would speak of economic and financial implosion. We've already seen manifestations of this in the two great collapses of Wall Street in the Shemitahs of 2001 and 2008. Lastly, the towers represented a global financial and economic order and age, in which America was the center. Even the name World Trade Center conveys this. What of their fall? It would warn of coming days when America is no longer the center of the world's financial and economic order, and when that order itself has collapsed. Isaiah 9:11 and beyond. Beyond the prophetic keys contained in the other 7 harbingers concerning America are the keys contained in the prophecy itself. If one reads beyond the vow of defiance in Isaiah 9:10, starting with verse 11, one finds an account of national judgment. The specific judgments that came upon ancient Israel in the years after the harbingers appeared. The description is chilling in its unrelenting execution. Though we would not expect the unique circumstances surrounding Israel's destruction to constitute a formula for the present, there are some striking things to note. The scenario concerns ungodly leaders, a government passing immoral laws, division, violence, a desolation that comes from far away, an enemy attack, fire on the land, destruction. The Shemitah and the mystery of the future. What about the harbinger of the Shemitah? Could its mystery reveal that which lies ahead? As I wrote at the beginning of this book, we must be careful with regard to date setting as to when certain events must come about. The issue is not of dates, but of the call to repentance and return. My concern with the focusing on dates is that it can take away from the central matter of repentance. I have warned of a coming judgment, but I have also cautioned against putting the workings of God in a box with regard to the timing of that judgment. God doesn't have to act in the same way, or according to the same timing as he did in the past. Prophetic signs do not generally happen routinely, or according to a schedule. There are Shemitah years that dramatically manifest the mystery, and others that do not. Nothing has to happen in the next Shemitah. Having said that, I must also give a second caution. God can work, as he has in the past, and can bring judgment at the time of the Shemitah. In view of both cautions, it is wise that one should be aware of the Shemitah and its days. The opening and closing pattern. While nothing of significance has to take place in any given Shemitah year, if something of significance were to happen, how might this manifest? The Shemitah's opening can mark the beginning of change and the shifting of momentum. At the same time, if a change or shifting should take place at this point, more often than not, it tends to constitute a first fruit, a foreshadow of what lies ahead, a subtle trace in comparison to what comes at the end. If there is a change at this point, its coming may or may not be noticeable at first. The general pattern is this: as the Shemitah progresses, and particularly as it nears its end, its intensity increases. As the Shemitah approaches the time of its climactic day and wake, it is then that the dramatic events associated with its coming either manifest, intensify, or approach their climax. In the case of September 2000, the Shemitah's beginning paralleled a downturn in national production, one of the signs of recession. but one could easily have missed it. Halfway through the Shemitah, the downturn coalesced into a full recession. And yet the Shemitah's most dramatic moment manifested in its last week. It was the week that the attack of 9/11 and the subsequent collapse of Wall Street took place. The overall pattern is that the Shemitah's most dramatic or intense time is that which leads up to Elul 29, or that which proceeds from Elul 29, the day of nullification. The Shemitah to come. So when is the next Shemitah? The Shemitah begins in September of 2014. Its first day, Tishri 1, commences at sunset on Wednesday night, September 24th, and ends at sunset on September 25th. But again, it is at the Shemitah's end and its wake that the most dramatic repercussions are felt. In each of the last two Shemitahs, the end day of Elul 29 saw the greatest collapses in stock market history. The coming Shemitah will end September 2015. Its final climactic day, Elul 29, the day of remission, will fall on Sunday, September 13th. Since the stock markets are closed, this would preclude the beginning of a market collapse that day, inasmuch as America is concerned. But there are other possibilities. While nothing has to take place on or around this time, if something were to happen, a collapse or calamity could take place just before or after that weekend, or both before and after. It could also take place within the larger Elul Tishri period surrounding Elul 29. Another possibility is that of a trigger event that takes place outside the time of the market's openings that could bring about a market collapse, as in the case of 9/11. And there is the possibility of a calamity taking place beyond and apart from the financial and economic realms, and yet which causes the collapse of both of these realms. It is worthy to note that as it was in 2001, so it will be again in 2015. The last day the market will be open, before Elul 29, the day of nullification, will be September 11th. During 2015, there will be two solar eclipses. Interestingly, both of them will bear significance with regard to the Shemitah's timing. One will mark the Shemitah's exact center point. The other will mark its climactic last day, Elul 29. The last time a solar eclipse fell on Elul 29 of a Shemitah year was 28 years earlier, in September 1987. It ushered in the greatest stock market percentage crash in American history that same month. See the epilogue for more about these solar eclipses, as well as blood moons. The what of the mystery? Again, as stated before, we cannot expect prophetic happenings to show up on a regular schedule, or to perform on cue. Nothing significant has to happen within the Shemitah of 2014-2015. The phenomenon may manifest in one cycle, and not in another, and then again in the next. And the focus of the message is not date-setting, but the call of God to repentance and return. At the same time, something of significance could take place, and it is wise to note the times. Regardless of what does or does not take place in the coming Shemitah, and regardless of the when involved in the mystery, it is wise that now we take note of the what, the mystery's essence, and apply it to America and the world concerning a judgment in days to come. The mystery of the Shemitah, future tense. If the Shemitah is to manifest in the form of judgment concerning America and the American-led world order and the American age, we can expect several things concerning its manifestation. The judgment will affirm the sovereignty of God over all things. The judgment will strike the realm of America's blessings, prosperity, and sustenance, and that of nations. The judgment will involve collapse. The judgment will humble America's pride and that of man. The judgment will lay bare the dependence of America and man on God. The judgment will separate wealth from the wealthy and possessions from the owner. The judgment will wipe away that which has been built up. The judgment will level imbalances and erase accounts within the nation and among the nations. The judgment will cause a cessation of functioning and an ending within America and the world. The judgment will bear witness against materialism within American civilization and throughout the world. The judgment will make clear the link between America's physical and material realm and that of the spiritual. The judgment will release entanglements, attachments, and bondages within the nation and among the nations. The judgment will strike America's economic and financial realms and that of the nations. The judgment will impact the realms of labor, production, employment, consumption, revenue, and trade. The judgment will cause production, commerce, labor, investment, profit, and trade to cease or severely decrease. The judgment will annul, transform, and wipe clean the financial accounts of America and the nations. The judgment will cause credit to go unpaid and debt to be released within America and the world. The judgment will wipe away that which is accumulated in America's financial realm and that of the world. The judgment will manifest as a sign against a nation that has driven God out of its life, rejected his ways, and pursued material blessings and idols in his place. The judgment will cast down the objects of America's pride and glory. The judgment will touch not only the financial and economic realms, but every realm of society and life. The judgment will wipe away structure of culture, of systems, of civilization. The judgment will wipe away physical realities. The judgment will alter the landscape of nations and powers. The judgment will involve and affect the rise and fall of great powers. The judgment will call America back to God. The Shemitah of the American age. The issue of what lies ahead would not be complete without dealing with the prophetic warning lying at the center of the mystery. We have watched as stock markets crash, economies collapse, and that which has been built up is wiped away, and all these things join to the Shemitah. Each of them have to do with the removal of blessing. Why is that? The Shemitah is the reminder to any nation or civilization that its blessings come from God, and without God, those blessings cannot endure. It is a warning to a nation founded on the purposes of God and blessed by God's hand, but now increasingly warring against the God of its blessings. The Shemitah is a warning to that nation that its blessings cannot endure. And then there's the prophetic warning contained within the Hebrew, as Shemitah literally means, the letting fall, the letting collapse. The warning is this: no nation can defy the ways and will of Him who is its source of blessings, and expect those blessings to continue. Without Him as the foundation, the blessings will be removed, and that which has been built up, no matter how highly built up, will collapse. The American age, and the American empire, as some have called it, have been highly built up. The warning here is this: if America continues on its present course, its place as the head of nations will fall, and the American age and global order will be allowed to collapse. A great shaking. As for things to watch, after the timing of the Shemitah, what may be of note is the timing of the last harbinger's completion, the tower at ground zero. Beyond that, it would be wise also to take note of America's crossing of key thresholds in its spiritual and moral descent. Regardless of when it takes place, whether in the days of the Shemitah or beyond, I believe a great shaking is coming to this nation and to the world. I believe that this shaking will involve financial and economic collapse, though it will not necessarily be confined or limited to these realms. The collapse in the financial and economic realms may be marked, triggered, or accompanied by events in other realms, and whether figuratively or more than figuratively, I believe will be in one form or another, as a famine in the land. Though such things take place as signs of national judgment, they happen also for the purpose of redemption and mercy, so that a nation, hardened and deafened to God's voice, may finally hear, awaken, turn, and return. We began by overlooking the ruins of Jerusalem with the prophet Jeremiah in 586 BC. One can only imagine what he felt as he looked out into the devastation. Beyond his sorrow was the fact that he saw it all coming before it happened. What if we, in the present case, have been given an advance look and an advance warning? What do we do? If calamity should come, how do we prepare ourselves? Is there hope? And what is the answer? To these last and critical questions, we now turn. Chapter 25.